Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode. Every .NET developer eventually will run into this problem. You need to connect AWS with your application. Maybe it's an S3 object, or maybe just a DynamoDB table that you want to query, or maybe it's just you are deploying something to an elastic Beanstalk or triggering a Lambda function. But before you even write a single line of cloud code, everything depends on this one thing, that is setting up the CLI correctly. So in this very video, I'm going to show you how to set up AWS CLI for .NET development the correct way. We'll go step by step from installation to credential configuration and make sure your local environment is ready to interact with AWS services securely and efficiently. So by the end of this video, your .NET applications will be able to authenticate with AWS, manage resources, and integrate with cloud services seamlessly. So with this said, with this context set, let's get started. Okay, so this is the AWS dashboard. You need to come over there. If you don't already have a free AWS account, I suggest you get one for yourself. Now it is completely free for up to 6 months. You get $200. It is a very generous tier that we get in order to just experiment with AWS services. Cool. Now, so once you are inside your dashboard, you need to come to the search box and look for IAM. Open this, and what we are going to do now is we are going to create an IAM user for programmatic access. All right. So now once you have opened IAM, you need to come to this user section over here, and even I have never really done this. I'm going to do this for the very first time today. So I'm going to hit this create user. And now over here, you need a username. Now I'm going to choose dev laptop because this is my Windows machine, Windows laptop, and I'm going to do some development work. I want it to be very relatable. So I'm going to do this. Now, if you want to use the same user for even logging into AWS Management Console, you could check this button over here. You could check this checkbox over here, but I'm not really going to use this user for logging into my AWS Management Console, and so I'm not going to check this box. Okay, let's just do next. So next we need to assign some permissions to my username or to my user. Now, if you already have a user group, you could just assign your user to that group and you will get all the permissions that were already present for the group. If you don't, I can also attach some policies directly. So inside this permission policies, you will get several policies mentioned over here. Now, if you want to be very specific, you can just look for S3 full access. You can assign that, or any particular resource that you are looking for, you can just search a corresponding permission for that and you would get that kind of permission. However, for the sake of this video, let's just do an administrator access. So this gives me complete access to all the services over here. So let's just select that and let's hit next. So I've got the username, required password reset, no, and I've got the permission summary over here. Now, if you want, you can add a tag. So I'm going to add this tag called admin, and then I'm going to say create user. All right. So now my new user, which is my dev laptop, has been created over here. Now, if you want, you can add more users to it with this button over here. But for now, let it just be this one user. Okay. So now that we have created our user, we need to create access key for that IAM user. So for that, let's just open this user and let's go to the security credentials over here. And then over here, we see this create access key. So let's just click this button. And now let's just create this command line interface CLI and let's confirm this and let's hit next. Now it needs a description tag value. So if you want, you can enter something that makes sense to you. But otherwise, you can just leave it blank and let's just hit create access key. We have now got our access key and the secret access key. I suggest that you download the CSV file so that you can always have it even if you lose it. Okay, why do we actually need these access keys? So you see, these access keys are long-lived credentials that the CLI or the SDK can use it without prompting each time to log in. Okay, so that is the purpose of these access keys over here. Okay, so now the next step is to install the AWS CLI on your machine. This is the link to download that AWS CLI. I'll put this link in the description. You can access it from there, or you can just go to Google, search for AWS CLI, and you will find a link that brings you on this page over here. Now, we need to install AWS CLI. I'm doing it on a Windows machine. You can, if you are on a Linux or Mac OS, you can follow those steps. But if you are on Windows, we can follow along. Okay, so now in order to install this AWS CLI, expand this Windows dropdown over here. And this is the installation link. You can, download the MSI file from that. Now I have already downloaded it and then installed it. It's a normal MSI installation, nothing complicated or fancy. Just double click, follow the steps, just hit the next button a couple of times and you should be done. Now, once you have done that, you will open your command prompt, or if you want, you can open your browser, you can open a PowerShell window and run it as an admin. Now, once you have done that, just type AWS hyphen version, and if the installation went well, it should now show me the AWS CLI version installed. And yes, so I've got the AWS CLI version 2.34, and I think the installation just went fine there. Cool. So this is working. Okay. Now, once that is done, we need to create a named profile for storing our credential for AWS. Now, in order to do that, you are going to type this command AWS configure hyphen profile and give it some name. I'm going to call it personal and hit enter. Now it is asking me for the access key ID. If you recall, we downloaded our CSV file. So I'm going to open that on my machine. So this is the access key over here. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here and hit enter. Then it needs the secret access key. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Now it needs the default region name. Now for the default region name, you would need your region. Okay, so my region is AP South 1. I'm going to hit that and hit enter. Now it says the default output format. Let that be JSON and hit enter. And now our AWS profile has been set up. So now if you go to this place over here, which says C users Harshit, that over here will be your username, and then .aws, you will see a config file. And if I open that, I shall be able to see my profile, my region, and the output file that I've just specified. Cool. So this is now being correctly set up. Now let us say if my CLI is actually able to authenticate me. Now for that, there's a command. I'm going to paste that and hit enter. So I think it is able to do that. It is able to give my user ID, my account, and it is also able to identify my user, that is the dev laptop. All right. So now one more thing. Once you have done this, we need one more step, that is to set the environment variable so that our .NET application could pick it from there. Now, how do we do that? In the search menu, let's just look for environment variables. And here is it. Let's open this. And now over here, let's just set the environment variables. So inside the system variables, we need to add our new environment variable. The first variable is AWS profile, and the profile that we created was personal. So just enter that name, or if you are not really sure, you can open that AWS config file that we just went to, hit OK, and this is saved over here. And we need one more. So for that, let's just go back to our PC, C drive, user, Harshit, AWS, and then config over here. Open this again in Notepad and region. So we need the region now. Okay. So let's come back to our AWS. Let's come back to our environment variables here. Add a new environment variable. The name for this is going to be AWS region, and the value for that is going to be AAP South 1 for my case. You could enter your region and hit OK. Then OK again. All right. And we are good to go now. All right. So we have now installed the CLI. We have got our profile set up, and we have also added our environment variables. Now it's time to actually do a quick .NET project, and let's see if we are able to access our S3 or our AWS services right within the solution without actually providing any hard-coded credentials anywhere. So for that, I'm going to create a new S3 bucket, create bucket. Let that be a general purpose bucket, and I need a name for that. So let's just call it demo bucket for YouTube. Okay. And now let the ACLs be disabled. I mean, you don't really have to worry about all these settings. I'll be running a series of these videos around Amazon, around AWS, along with .NET. So we'll discuss in detail what this particular setting for an S3 means. So for now, let's just test if our .NET application is able to communicate with AWS. So let block all public access should be fine. Bucket versioning is disabled, and bucket key, let's disable that. Cool. Now once you have done that, just hit create bucket, and our very first bucket should now be live. So this demo bucket for YouTube is present now. Now I'm going to open up my Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new project. Let's just create a console app and let's call it AWS CLI tests. Hit next. Let it be .NET 10. Let's hit create here. Cool. So our program.cs has come up and I need to add a NuGet package. So for that, I'm going to look for AWS SDK.s3. Now this is that NuGet package. I'm going to install it. It's done. Let's hit save. Now let's come to this program.cs and the very first line is going to be using Amazon.s3. And now let's add a try catch block. And inside the try, now let's try to access the S3 bucket. So I'm going to say using var S3 client is equal to new Amazon S3 client. Okay. So now that we have already set up our AWS client ID and secret, if we didn't have to set up those, I would have to give my client ID or secret over here. So if I go inside that, we should see a method that would be taking the client ID and the client secret. You see, there is this place where we could have, it has an overload where we could have given the region endpoint and you see this AWS credentials. So inside the constructor, we would have given this thing over here. But because we have already established our environment variables, we don't really need to give anything inside this call for Amazon S3 client. Cool. Now we need to use this S3 client to list my bucket. Let me add an await keyword over here. Let's just call it my buckets. Now let's do a for each bucket in my buckets. Let's just say it should be my buckets dot buckets. Excuse me for the spelling of bucket. Okay, let's just fix that. Or rather, let's call it response. And now inside this, what we could do is let's try to read the bucket dot bucket name and let's also try to print the created date time. So my spellings are being wrong again and again. Bucket dot creation date. Cool. So now if we have set up everything correctly, this code of ours should work. Okay, so let's just quickly add. Okay, let's just leave the exception thing or okay, let's just print the exception if we get that. Cool. I think it should be done. So let me add a breakpoint and then let's add a breakpoint on this place. Okay. I'm going to run this and let us see what happens. Okay, so the debugger has hit. Let's go forward one line. Okay, so we have got some response. Okay, so we have got one bucket and the name is demo bucket for YouTube. And I think it shows the correct time also. Let's print that anyways. And now if I look at my command prompt, I see this demo bucket for YouTube. And let's go back. And yes, this was the bucket that we created. So we are able to access the AWS resource right from our project. We continue this and the program shall end gracefully. Cool. So this was it, like how we can set up AWS profile on our machine so that we can programmatically access the AWS resource. Now following this video, there will be a series of videos that are about to come up on my channel and we'll be doing some deep dive into various AWS resources. We'll do scenarios where we will be using multiple resources at once and trying to figure out some system design issues. Cool. So if you like this video and you want to watch other videos related to AWS for .NET, I would urge you to please subscribe to my channel and it will be a real pleasure to have you along this journey of understanding AWS along with .NET. Alright, I'll see you in the next one, but until then, stay safe and stay happy.